My name is Audrey Collins. The moment my brother looked me in the eye and said, "You're not welcome at my wedding," I finally understood the truth. I had never really been family. I had only been useful. He didn't pull me aside or speak to me in private. He announced it right there inside the wedding venue I had spent 6 months organizing. We stood beneath crystal chandeliers I had negotiated down to a price he could afford, or more accurately, a price I was paying for. "You'll embarrass us," he said without hesitation. We all voted. It was unanimous. Voted. As if I were a problem that needed to disappear. My parents stood beside him. My mother couldn't meet my eyes. My father simply nodded, acting as though this was perfectly reasonable. As though I hadn't spent months giving up my weekends, my savings, and countless sleepless nights to make their dream wedding come true. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply looked down at the contract folder in my hands. Every agreement carried my name. Every deposit had been charged to my card. Every promise had been made by me. "Okay," I said quietly. Relief spread across their faces. They thought they had won. I handed my brother the folder. "Good luck without me." Then I turned around and walked away. Behind me, nervous laughter filled the room. They were already celebrating, convinced nothing had changed. What they didn't realize was that everything they were counting on belonged to me. Instead of going home, I sat in my car outside the venue. My hands rested on the steering wheel as I took slow, steady breaths until the shaking finally stopped. A few moments later, my phone rang. I ignored it. Seconds later, a text appeared. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Harder. As if I were the one who had just been erased after months of doing everything for them. I opened my laptop and logged into the wedding vendor accounts. The venue. The caterer. The photographer. The florist. The band. One by one, I opened every contract. Each one listed the same information. Authorized contact Audrey Collins. Payment holder Audrey Collins. Not my brother. Not my parents. Me. My brother had made one very expensive mistake. He assumed I would keep protecting him. I picked up my phone and called the venue coordinator. "Hello," I said calmly. "This is Audrey Collins. I'd like to remove myself from the contract, effective immediately." There was a brief silence. "Are you certain?" she asked gently. I looked through my windshield at the building they believed was theirs. "Yes," I answered. "I'm certain." "I understand," she replied. A confirmation email arrived. Then another. Then another. By the time I drove away, every reservation, every booking, and every payment connected to that wedding had been canceled or released from my responsibility. They simply hadn't found out yet. It took about 3 hours. I was sitting quietly on my couch when my phone exploded with calls. My brother's name flashed across the screen. This time I answered. "What did you do?" he shouted, panic filling his voice. I leaned back. "What are you talking about?" "The venue just called. They said the contract was canceled. They said the deposit holder withdrew." I stayed silent. Then he spoke again, much quieter. "They said, your name was the only one on the contract." The silence between us grew heavy. For the first time, he understood exactly what he had thrown away. "You can fix this," he said quickly. "Just call them back. Tell them it was a mistake." Mistake. As if walking away from a place where I wasn't wanted had happened by accident. "You voted," I reminded him. He let out a frustrated breath. "This isn't funny, Audrey." "I know," I replied. "It never was." I ended the call. Within minutes, my mother called. Then my father. Then both of them again and again. I ignored every single call. Because somewhere inside the venue they believed they controlled, doors were quietly closing. And there was nothing they could do about it. By that evening, the angry messages had turned into desperate pleas. My mother left the first voicemail. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Audrey, please. This isn't the time to be stubborn. Your brother's wedding is only 2 days away." She never apologized. She never admitted they had hurt me. She never said they were wrong. She only cared that their perfect wedding was falling apart. A few minutes later, my father's message appeared on my screen. "You're embarrassing this family." I stared at those words for a long time. My mind drifted back to every vendor meeting I attended alone. Every late-night phone call I handled while my brother focused on his own life. Every weekend I sacrificed because I believed that, Someday their appreciation would finally make it all worthwhile. My phone rang again. This time I answered. My brother wasn't angry anymore. He sounded defeated. They're canceling everything, he said quietly. The caterer, the photographer, the florist, all of it. I remained silent. You knew this would happen. I looked around my apartment, the home I paid for, the peaceful life I built without their approval. Yes, I replied. A long silence followed. Then, almost in a whisper, he asked, "Why would you do this to me?" I closed my eyes for a moment. "I didn't do anything to you," I said calmly. "I simply stopped doing everything for you." He had no answer. Because deep down he knew I was right. This wasn't revenge. It was what happened when my sacrifices finally ended. And without them, everything they had built on my shoulders was collapsing. The next morning my father showed up at my apartment. He didn't knock politely. He pounded on the door as if he still believed he had the right to command me. When I opened it, he looked older than I remembered. Not weaker. Just exposed. "You've made your point," he said. "Now fix this." I leaned against the doorway, completely calm. "There's nothing to fix." His jaw clenched. "Your brother is humiliated. Guests are calling. Everyone wants answers." I almost smiled. "People should have asked questions when you voted me out." He ignored the comment. "We never thought you'd actually cancel everything," he admitted. There was not an apology, an expectation. He had always assumed I would stay. That no matter how badly they treated me, I would quietly clean up the mess. "I told you," I said. "Good luck without me." He let out a slow breath. Only then did he realize I had meant every word. "You're his sister," he said. I met his eyes without hesitation. And I was his planner, his banker, and his safety net. Neither of us spoke. For the first time in my life, my father had nothing to say. Because this wasn't about forgiveness anymore. It was about consequences. And for once they were the ones living with them. That evening, another knock echoed through my apartment. This time it was my brother. He stood outside my door looking like a stranger. When I opened it, he hesitated before speaking. The confidence he always carried was gone. His shoulders slumped. His voice barely rose above a whisper. "They said the venue is gone." I nodded. "It's already been booked by someone else. They told me the deposit holder released the date," he continued. He swallowed hard. "You knew it would happen that fast." I didn't deny it. I had signed the release myself. "They won't give it back," he said. "Not unless I pay the full amount again." He lowered his eyes. "I don't have that kind of money." For years I had protected him from every mistake. Every bad decision. Every consequence. Till now. "You shouldn't have voted," I said quietly. He closed his eyes. "Mom said you'd calm down," he whispered. "She said you'd never actually walk away." Those words hurt more than being excluded from the wedding. They had never believed I had limits. They believed they could keep taking from me forever. He looked up again, his eyes filled with disbelief. "You're really not going to fix this?" It wasn't really a question. "No," I answered. Because this was never about punishment. It was about finally walking away from a place where I had never been truly appreciated. For the first time, my brother was experiencing what my absence actually meant. The wedding went ahead anyway. Just not at the beautiful venue I had reserved. Not beneath the crystal chandeliers we had chosen together months before. Instead, the ceremony was moved to a small banquet hall across town. It was rushed. It was smaller. And nothing looked the way they had imagined. I didn't attend. I didn't check my phone. I didn't have to. By midday, the messages began arriving on their own. Guests complained about the last-minute changes. Vendors failed to show. Decorations were incomplete. The schedule kept falling apart. Nothing matched the perfect wedding my brother had pictured. Not because I had ruined it. Because I was no longer there to keep everything from falling apart. That evening my mother called. This time I answered. She didn't sound angry. She sounded exhausted. "It wasn't the same," she said quietly. I stayed silent. "He kept looking around," she continued. "Like something was missing." I looked out my apartment window instead of closing my eyes and remembering theirs. Something was missing. Not the expensive venue. Not the decorations. Not even the money. It was me. For years they believed my presence was optional. Only after I was gone did they realize I had been holding everything together. But some lessons arrive too late. And some absences once created cannot be undone. A week later, an envelope appeared in my mailbox. There was no return address. Only my name, written carefully in my mother's handwriting. Inside was the original wedding invitation I had designed. The thick ivory cardstock. The soft silver lettering. The elegant design my brother once said made the wedding feel truly special. Across the front, my mother had written a single sentence. "We never realized how much you were carrying for all of us." I read those words several times. Not because they repaired the damage, but because they confirmed what I had already learned. They only recognized my worth after they no longer had access to it. That evening, I walked slowly through my apartment. Every room reflected choices I had made for myself. Every piece of furniture. Every quiet corner. Every bit of peace. No one was deciding whether I belonged. No one was voting on my place in the family. For the first time in years, my life belonged completely to me. Then my phone buzzed. A single message from my brother. "I'm sorry." I looked at the screen for a moment. Then I locked my phone without replying. Not because I was angry. Because I finally understood something. An apology cannot erase the moment someone shows you exactly how they see you. They believed they could shut me out of their lives and that I would still be waiting whenever they needed me again. Instead, I built a life where I was never waiting at all. And for the first time, I realized I didn't need an invitation to belong. I already belonged, to myself.